Sulla returned home from the inauguration, not to the peace of retirement, but to a fresh irritation. Clytumna had a nephew, a man named Lucius Bassus.
Bassus, what a wretched little creature of a man!
Bassus operated a snug little agency for domestic servants in the Campus Martius. It wasn't a firm for the elite. It was a business for the aspirational, those whose purses only stretched to 3 or 4 cut-rate helpers. Sulla stood in the atrium, paralyzed by a choice: flee his own house or hide until the sticky-beaked nephew finally took his leave. He retreated to the garden, seeking the damp cold of the peristyle to drown out the noise of the house. He tried to ignore the statue Clytumna had recently installed, Apollo in mid-stride, reaching for a Daphne whose fingers were already hardening into laurel.
A god chasing a girl who would rather be a tree than be his, a waste of divine energy.
After some time, he realized that Bassus wasn't leaving, and he was better off just confronting him. He stalked into the tablinum, the study that was his only true sanctuary. There, he found the insipid little man, stuffing his face with candied figs. Worse, Bassus was poking his sticky, dirty fingers through Sulla's collection of scrolls.
Oh, you're here. It's lucky I know you're too stupid to read, Bassus. Bithy, go fetch a bowl of water and a cloth. Wipe up the mess Master Bassus has made of my books.
Sulla's eerie eyes fixed on the nephew with the cold malice of a goat. The servant girl Bithy did as she was commanded.
Get it out of your head that I keep naughty picture books in here. I don't need them. Those are for people who don't have the guts to do anything in the real world. One day, this house and everything in it will be mine. You won't be so uppity then, Lucius Cornelius. Bithy, go fetch me some wine and tell my aunt that I'm hungry.
I hope you're offering plenty of sacrifices to postpone that day, Bassus, because it's likely to be your last. If it weren't for Clytumna, I'd cut you into little pieces and feed you to the dogs. Now, get out of my room.
Bassus scuttled away, leaving Sulla to fume. Seeking a different kind of refuge, Sulla headed to the suite of his mistress, Nicopolis. He sank onto a couch with a sigh, letting Bithy remove his winter boots. Bithy was a cheerful treasure from the backwoods of Bithynia. As she smoothed warm socks over his feet, Sulla reached out a careless hand to ruffle her hair.
Thank you, Bithy.
She glowed. There was a tenderness in the gesture that surprised even Sulla.
You know, Lucius Cornelius, if you would only step down from your pedestal occasionally, you'd do a lot better.
How so?
Why should that greedy crawler Bassus inherit everything? If you changed your tactics just a fraction, Clytumna would leave the lot to you. And she's got a lot, believe me. Her bankers hang on her every word. She has a tidy fortune, and Bassus has his own.
Sulla sat up with a jerk. The thought of a senator's census, the million sesterces he needed, flashed in his mind.
Nicky, you wouldn't spin me a tale, would you?
I would, but not about this. She might live to 100, but then again she may not. It isn't a long-lived family.
Sulla grinned, a dark, dangerous spark in his eyes. He stood up, the massive folds of his toga slumping to the floor.
All right, Nicky. Just this once, I'll try the tactful approach. Wish me luck.
The interview with Clytumna was a disaster. Sulla's pride was a wall he couldn't climb over. He called Bassus a grubby little would-be, and the house dissolved into a screaming match.
It's all your fault, Lucius Cornelius. Bassus tries to get along with you, but you insult him every chance you get.
My fault? Open your eyes, Clitty. Your nephew is a parasite. You're the only one who doesn't see it.
Nicopolis entered and reclined onto a couch.
What's the matter, Clytumna?
It's my two Luciuses. They cannot get along.
He's a wretched little creature.
Well, now you have no choice but to make the effort. My darling Lucius Gavius is moving in with us next week.
What? In that case, I'm moving out.
The two women began to squeal, Clytumna shrilly, Nicopolis like a trapped kitten. They tried to bargain, suggesting crafty, sleeping arrangements to hide the truth from the nephew. Sulla's face was inches from Clytumna's.
Shut up, both of you. You've been watching mimes so long you're beginning to live them. Don't be so vulgarly crass. I detest this situation. I am tired of being half a man.
Well, you're not half a man. You're two halves, half mine and half Nicky's.
Sulla glared at them, perfectly poised on the edge of madness. He couldn't think. He couldn't see.
This situation. I can't go on.
Nonsense, Lucius. Of course you can. Go do something constructive. You'll feel better tomorrow.
Sulla fled the house. His feet blundered up the alley, taking him toward the Palatium, the height of the hill that looked down toward the Circus Maximus. He was a man with the blood of kings and the life of a parasite, walking alone into the Roman night. Sulla fled to the Palatium, the quiet, unfashionable crown of the hill. He sat upon a cold stone, clad only in a thin house tunic, oblivious to the winter chill. He wasn't looking at the temples or the great circus below. He was looking at the vista of his own life, an endless, warped roadway of skin and bone that led nowhere.
Are you ill?
Sulla looked up. At first, his eyes were clouded by agony, but then she swam into focus. A heart-shaped face, honey-colored eyes, and a golden hairline. It was the girl from the tent.
Julia.
No, Julia is my older sister. They call me Jullina. Are you ill, Lucius Cornelius?
Not with anything a physician can heal.
Then the gods have use for you yet, Lucius Cornelius.
Sulla looked at her with disapproval. What were the Julii thinking, letting a girl of her station wander the Palatine at this hour? She gestured to a slave girl waiting discreetly in the distance, a loyal and discreet girl who kept her secrets.
Go home, Caesaris. If you must get caught, don't let it be with me.
Why, do you mean to do me harm?
Of course not. Not to a Julii.
Not a Julii, but to other girls then.
Sulla didn't respond to that. He recognized the signs of a girlish crush and felt an impulse to frighten her away with something coarse. But he couldn't. For her, he would produce the best version of himself, the one free of the smut and smarm of the Subura.
Well, if you're not going to hurt me, would you mind terribly if we spoke for a bit?
Speak about what, exactly?
About you, and about me.
Sulla felt he was heading down a dangerous path, but couldn't resist the temptation.
Sit here, next to me then. The ground is damp. So how do you even know who I am, Caesaris?
Caesaris, I must insist you call me Jullina.
Have it your way, Jullina. Question still stands. How do you know who I am?
The servants know everything. They gossip terribly. They told me that you're a disgrace to your name. But I don't see how that's possible when you haven't had a chance to prove otherwise.
I dare say your father is the author of that remark.
Oh no, not Tata. He's the wisest man in the world.
And mine was the most foolish. We are at opposite ends of Rome's spectrum, Jullina.
As they spoke, Jullina's nimble fingers plucked the long winter grass from the cracks in the marble. She wove it with practiced ease, her eyes never leaving his, until a rough, green circle took shape in her hands. Sulla's breath caught. For a second, the future spasmed open, a glimpse of blood-soaked fields, and the roar of 1,000 saved men. Before the vision collapsed back into the quiet of the moment.
A crown of grass? You have no idea what that represents, girl.
I know it represents a man who is worth following. I didn't find any laurel, Sulla. This will have to do for now.
She reached forward and placed the wreath upon his fiery curls. She didn't understand. In the Roman army, the corona obsidionalis, the grass crown, was the highest military honor a man could receive, given only to a commander who saved an entire legion from destruction.
A girl should give a wreath to someone who has the time to play at being king.
Perhaps I'm not playing.
Only for a little while, girl. It will pass. You're a baby. 15, 16. What's the difference? Look at you, all swaddled up like a roly-poly puppy.
The light died in her eyes. Sulla saw her wither under the cruelty of his words.
I'm not pretty. I always thought I was.
Growing up is a cruel business. You'll be passable when you're older. You won't lack for a husband. But disabuse yourself, my roly-poly puppy. Run away before I pull your tail. Go on, shoo.
Sulla stood in the sudden silence of the portico, the air still humming with the girl's departing laughter. He reached up and plucked the crown of winter weeds from his fiery curls. It felt heavier than grass should. It felt like iron.
A grass crown.
He stood there gazing at the weeds, the last rays of light turning the dead blades to bronze. He was no longer on the Palatine. He was on a 4-horse chariot on the Via Sacra. The city was choked with fragrant white smoke and the roar of 100,000 voices. He was beneath a golden laurel, held not by a girl, but by a slave, reminding him of his mortality. He saw the names, thousands of them, inked in blood on the white walls of the Forum. He was not in his threadbare tunic, but in the purple of conqueror, bestriding the Republic.
You sent her to me, didn't you? A descendant of Venus herself. Felix, the lucky one. Your own blood. If this gift truly comes to pass, I will be your greatest servant. I will build you a temple that makes the gods upon Olympus jealous. A temple to Venus Victrix.
Winter twilight lay heavy over the Palatine when Sulla returned to Clytumna's house. He found his 2 women in the dining room, their heads together in a conspiratorial huddle. It was obvious he had been the subject of their talk. As he entered, they sprang apart, trying to look innocent.
I want some money. Now.
Now, Lucius.
Silence! I need some money. 1,000 denarii. I'm going away for a holiday. If you ever want me to come back, if you want more of what I've got, then hand it over. Otherwise, I'm quitting Rome forever. Consider it the price of my company.
Nicopolis watched his face, her dark eyes calculating. She knew he spoke true.
We'll give you half each.
15 minutes later, Nicopolis found him in his room, packing with the economical efficiency of a veteran.
You pack like a soldier. How would you know how to do that?
How would you know?
I was the mistress of a military tribune once. I followed the drum to Spain and Asia. I adored him. He was killed in Macedonia and I came home. He left me everything. That's how I got rich.
My heart bleeds for you.
This is a nasty house, Lucius. I hate it. We are all bitter and unhappy. Why am I here?
Because, my dear, you're getting a bit frayed around the edges. You're not the girl you used to be in Spain.
Sulla strapped his saddlebags and hefted them easily. To Nicopolis, he looked like he was going to a festival. But the smile he gave her was half sinister, half wily.
I want to be free. I want to go to some country town where no one knows my wretched face. I'll eat until I spew, pick 50 fights, bed lonely wives, and then I promise I'll come tamely home to you and Bassus and Auntie Clitty, and we'll all live happily ever after.
But it wasn't a holiday. It was an investigative mission. For months, Lucius Cornelius Sulla vanished into the Italian countryside. He found himself in the company of Samnite herbalists. He wasn't looking for wine or women. He was making inquiries into subjects the Senate would find terrifying: pharmacology, chemistry, and the subtle properties of botany. He didn't return to Rome until the end of April. He surrendered his hired gig and mules in the Vallis Caminarum, walking past the stockyards and slaughterhouses where the air was thick with the smell of blood and wood smoke. He climbed the steps of Cacus back onto the Palatine and sounded the knocker on Clitumna's door. He was greeted by a world of shrieking women. They wept, they whinnied, they draped themselves around his neck like ivy.
My girls, I am home.
Sulla returned to the house, but he refused to hand his saddlebags to the servants. He followed Nicopolis to her suite, leaving a ringing-handed Clitumna behind in the atrium. Nicopolis had surrendered her own spacious sitting room to him, a gesture of loyalty that, for a rare moment, touched Sulla's cold heart.
All mine.
All yours.
He dropped the bags onto the bed. He was impatient for the news, but Nicopolis wanted the solace of his arms first. Sulla, however, had no need for sexual comfort. He had come home for a different kind of business. With a sigh, Nicopolis resigned herself to being his informant.
Bassus is well entrenched. He's sleeping in the master's cubicle and using your study. It was clever of you to go away, Lucius. He entered like a triumphing general, but with you gone, there was no one to dim his glory. He threw your books in the rubbish.
My books?
The servants rescued them. Everything you left, your clothes, your personal effects, Bassus tossed them out. Clitumna was devastated, but she couldn't stop him. Blood is thicker than water, even hers. But because you weren't here to fight him, the edge was taken off his pleasure. There was no one to quarrel with, just a weepy aunt and me, looking through him as if he were a ghost.
As she spoke, the little servant, Bithy, sidled in with a plate of cakes. Spying the saddlebags, she moved to unpack them. Sulla moved with a predator's speed. One moment he was in his chair, the next he had intercepted the girl, gently pinching her cheek and ushering her out the door.
My, you are worried about those bags. What's in them? You're like a dog guarding a bone.
Pour me some wine.
Come, Lucius Cornelius. What is in there that no one can see?
What do you think? I've been away 4 months. I didn't think of you all the time, but I did think of you. I saw a few little things I thought might please you.
Truly? When may I see?
When I'm good and ready. What's the hour?
The 8th, I think. Dinner isn't due yet.
Sulla waited for her to leave. He bolted the door and closed the shutters. He dumped out the cheap trinkets and new book rolls he'd bought to sell the lie. But from the very bottom of the right-hand bag, tucked deep inside 2 pairs of rolled socks, he drew forth his true prize. 2 small glass bottles, their stoppers heavily sealed with wax. Feeling the weight of them in his palm, Sulla finally felt at ease. He opened the shutters and unbolted the door. He gathered up the heap of trinkets, and with a malicious grin, he picked out one specific scroll from the pile. He was ready for dinner. Sulla entered the dining room like the sun appearing from behind a cloud. He tossed his armful of travel gifts to the women, who watched him with adoring eyes. He had chosen well. Fine things they wouldn't be ashamed to wear. But his true attention was on the host's couch, where Lucius Gavius Bassus sat ensconced. Before sliding between the 2 women, Sulla slapped a rolled-up book onto the table in front of his rival.
A little something for you, Bassus. From my travels.
Bassus, startled by the gesture, untied the tapes and unfurled the papyrus. His cheeks flared scarlet. The gift was a collection of beautifully drawn male figures performing athletic feats of an intimate nature.
Thank you, Lucius Cornelius. You're very welcome, Lucius Gavius.
The first course arrived. pheasant sausages, and tunny fish in oil. Sulla tucked in with a predatory hunger, sliding wicked glances at Bassus, who sat isolated on his couch.
Tell me, love. I refuse to believe nothing has happened while I was away. Give me the news.
Our neighbours have been busy. Titus Pomponius's wife had a boy in February.
Ye gods. Another money-hungry banker for the future. Just what Rome needs.
Our other neighbours, on the other side, just celebrated a wedding.
Who? The Caesars?
That's right. Caesar's daughter married none other than Gaius Marius. Disgusting, isn't it?
Something happened to Sulla's heart. It seemed to drop like a stone to the bottom of his belly. He kept his tone disinterested, but the air in the room suddenly felt thin.
Gaius Marius? I don't know him.
He's a new man, not from Rome. He was praetor 5 years ago, then was sent to Spain as governor, made an absolute fortune in the mines.
What does he look like?
Grotesque. He has the most enormous eyebrows, like hairy caterpillars.
Doesn't Caesar have 2 daughters?
He does indeed. Marius chose the elder daughter, Julia. She's at least 30 years younger than Marius. Poor girl.
What's unusual about that? Half the girls in Rome marry men old enough to be their fathers.
I know more than you do, snot-nose. At least older men have learned to be considerate. My worst lovers were all under 25. They think they know everything, but they know nothing. It's like being hit by a bull, over before it starts.
Bassus, being 23, bridled at the insult, but Sulla didn't care. The room devolved into a chaotic melee of tickling and shrill laughter as he rolled Clytumna over on the couch. It was too much for Bassus. Clutching his naughty book, he stalked out of the room. He retreated to the study, wondering how he would ever dislodge a man who held his aunt in such a besotted grip. Bassus wasn't upset about missing the mutton. In his study, he kept a private treasury of his true vices, a jar of figs in syrup, honeyed pastries, perfumed jellies from Parthia, a box of juicy raisins. The next morning, Sulla yielded to an impulse he despised. He walked back to the Palatium, to the exact spot where he had first encountered the girl with the grass crown. It was high spring now. The winter grey had been replaced by a riot of narcissus, hyacinth, and early roses. The rock where he had sat in agony was now nearly hidden by lush, green grass. Jullina was already there. She looked thinner, her golden skin a shade paler. When she saw him, a wild, triumphant joy suffused her, though she tried to downplay it to Sulla.
Young Jullina.
I heard you came back yesterday.
Got your spies out, have you?
That isn't necessary in our street, Lucius Cornelius. You know that.
Well, I hope you don't think I came here looking for you. I came for a little peace.
Does that mean I disturb your peace?
Gods, girl, you have a lot of growing up to do. If I came here for peace, it means I expected to find it here. By logical progression, it means you don't disturb my peace 1 iota.
Or it could mean that you did not expect to find me here.
Well, now that we are both here, how goes your sister's marriage? You aren't the only one with servants.
She's already moved out. The procession was spectacular. Almost as spectacular as his house.
Well, I hear he's a formidable man.
My poor sister has been yoked to an old ox. She doesn't seem to mind, though. But what about you? You're already 30 and not yet married?
What difference does it make to a little girl like you?
I'm nearly of marriage myself. It makes all the difference.
Do not make yourself a nuisance to me.
He turned and walked away, never looking back. It would have been better for Jullina if she had collapsed in tears. A bout of pain might have convinced her she stood no chance. But instead, her pride rose with her chin. Chryseis, Jullina's servant, approached when Sulla was out of sight.
He's going to be difficult. But never mind. Sooner or later, I shall get him.
I don't think he wants you, Domina.
Of course he wants me. He wants me desperately.
As they walked past the great temple of Magna Mater, Jullina's voice turned determined.
I shall refuse to eat.
And what will that do?
In January, he said I was fat. I haven't touched a honey cake since. He likes thin women. Look at Nicopolis. Her arms are like sticks. If my parents think I'm sick, they'll worry. And if they worry, so will Lucius Cornelius. He'll worry about me dreadfully.
Chrysius was loyal, but she was not bright. Unable to find a better argument, she burst into tears. It was a reaction that pleased Jullina enormously. 4 days after Sulla's return, Lucius Gavius Bassus fell ill. It began as a violent digestive disorder, prostrating him, stripping the arrogance from his acne-pocked face. Clitumna, panicked, summoned 6 of the Palatine's most fashionable doctors.
Vomiting, colic, purging. A classic picture of food poisoning.
But he hasn't eaten anything the rest of us haven't. In fact, he's barely eating at all.
Ah, Domina, you are quite wrong. Your nephew has a hoard of Alexandrian cakes hidden in his study. Your staff tells me he eats them all day and half the night. Persuade him to give up the confectionaries, or he will never recover.
Bassus lay on his bed, his slightly protruding eyes jumping from one face to another, too weak from the violence of his purging to defend himself.
What is your business, Lucius Gavius?
I'm a slaver.
The doctors, most of whom had started their own lives in Rome as slaves, looked at him with a new, jaundiced light. They moved away from his bed, as if the very air around him had become poisoned.
If he wants something sweet, let him stick to the honeyed wine. Keep him off solids for a few days. Then a normal diet. Beans, salads, cold meat. No more sugar.
Bassus's condition improved over the next week, but he never truly recovered. He ate the wholesome foods the doctors prescribed, yet the bouts of nausea and pain returned like a rhythmic tide. He began to lose weight. By the end of summer, he couldn't even drag himself to his office. The illustrated book Sulla had given him lay forgotten. Food became an ordeal. Only the honeyed wine could he tolerate. By September, every doctor in Rome had seen him. Some suggested starvation, others a diet of pure beans. Finally, the Greek Athenodorus delivered the verdict.
It is a malignancy of the upper bowel. It is not contagious, but ensure those who touch him wash their hands thoroughly and keep them away from the kitchen.
2 days later, Lucius Gavius Bassus died. Clitumna, beside herself with grief, fled to her villa by the sea. Sulla escorted her to Campania, but he refused to stay. When he returned to the house on the Palatine, he didn't go to Nicopolis's suite. He walked straight to the study.
I'm resuming tenancy here. My sleeping cubicle, my desk. Now that Bassus is dead, I'm the closest thing Clitumna has to a son.
Sulla began sweeping the lavishly illustrated scrolls into a burning bucket, his face twisted in a snarl of pure disgust.
That man was a pig. Look at this place.
He picked up a carafe of honeyed wine. It sat in a caked, syrupy ring on the priceless citrus wood console. Sulla hissed through his teeth at the sight of the ingrained mark in the wood.
What a cockroach. Goodbye, Bassus.
He pitched the carafe through the open window. It flew across the colonnade and shattered into 1,000 shards against the plinth of the Apollo statue. A huge, syrupy star of wine marred the stone, trickling down into the ground.
You're right. What a cockroach. Biffy, go clean the pedestal. I'm glad you missed the statue.
Damn it.
Lucius, it would have ruined the paintwork. At least the plinth is plain marble.
Bah! Why is it that I am permanently surrounded by tasteless fools?
He tipped her off his lap. The stain was gone.
Bithy, be thorough with your wash. I would hate for you to catch whatever malignancy took poor Bassus from us.
Beaming because he had noticed her, Bithy went to wash. Sulla stood alone in his reclaimed kingdom. The pest was gone. The study was his. The house was his. He could now see a path out of his currently fallen status.